Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining the webcast today on information retrieval for international disability and rehabilitation research. Our presenters today are Dr. John Stone and Mr. Dan Conley from the Center on International Rehabilitation Research Information and Exchange, CIRRIE, based at the University at Buffalo. They will describe some of the goals and activities of the CIRRIE project and will focus specifically on the features of the CIRRIE database of international rehabilitation research and how to search and use the results. This is the first of a series of webcasts designed to help to increase access to international research and researchers. I'm your host, Joanne Starks, and I'm with the Center on Knowledge Translation for Disability and Rehabilitation Research, KTDRR, part of the Disability Research to Practice program based at CIDL in Austin, Texas. The KTDRR is funded by the National Institute on Disability and Rehabilitation Research. I'll be moderating today's webcast. A reminder for all participants, there are some materials accompanying today's event that can be found on the webpage advertising this webcast. The presentation is available as a PowerPoint file as well as a text version. The slides on the computer screen are small, so having the actual file or a printout could be helpful. If you have not downloaded the materials yet, you can go back to your confirmation email and click on the title of today's webcast. Scroll down that page to download materials. Please remember these materials are copyrighted and you must contact our presenters to ask permission to use any of this information. If you have any questions during or after the webcast, please feel free to send them to me at ktdrr@sedl.org, or you may contact our presenters directly at the address that will be shown on the last slide. We would appreciate your feedback today by filling out a very brief evaluation form after the webcast. I will remind you about this at the end of today's presentation. Now I would like to introduce our speakers. John Stone, PhD, is the director of the Center for International Rehabilitation Research Information and Exchange. He is also a clinical associate professor of rehabilitation science at the University at Buffalo, State University of New York. In 1999, he founded the CIRRIE project and conceptualized the CIRRIE database of international rehabilitation research in collaboration with colleagues from the university's Health Science Library. Also joining us today is Dan Conley, MLS, who joined CIRRIE in 2006 after obtaining his master's degree in library science. He has a background in web design and accessibility and has redesigned both the CIRRIE database and website. I will now invite Dr. John Stone to begin the presentation.
Thank you very much, Joanne, for that kind introduction, and it's certainly a pleasure to be collaborating with your group at CIDL once again. This presentation today will discuss first the purpose of the CIRRIE database, and we will then give an overview of some of its main features. After that, we'll go into a more detailed explanation of how to use those features. The Center for International Rehabilitation Research Information and Exchange is a center funded by the National Institute for Disability and Rehabilitation Research, and its mission is to facilitate the sharing of information and expertise between rehabilitation researchers in the U.S. and those in other countries. CIRRIE has a number of programs and activities to further that mission, and they include a program of exchanges to support international collaboration, an online encyclopedia, an international encyclopedia of rehabilitation. We also conduct conferences, symposia, and workshops, and some of those events have been to make the World Health Organization's International Classification of Functioning Disability and Health and the World Report on Disability more widely known and used in the United States. We've also held conferences on cultural competency in rehabilitation, as well as developing curricula and educational resources on this topic. But today's focus will be on the CIRRIE database of international rehabilitation research. Now, why is access to international research so important? Well, a report from the National Science Board provides an answer to that question. New ideas and discoveries are emerging from all over the world, and the balance of science and engineering expertise is shifting among countries. Many research problems require scientists and engineers in different countries to work together. Collaborative activities and international partnerships provide increasingly important means of keeping abreast of new insights and discoveries. Scientific leadership requires access to people, knowledge, and infrastructure wherever they are found. Historically, many researchers in the U.S. have not had ready access to international research in the field of rehabilitation. Some of the reasons for this are partly because of distance and expense. U.S. researchers have given priority to professional associations in the United States, attending their conferences and reading their journals. Collaborations were typically with other researchers in the United States. As a result, the references in articles published in the United States usually did not include many references to research conducted in other countries. That is now changing. An analysis that CIRRIE conducted of a sample of U.S. rehabilitation journals found that there has been a steady increase over the past decade in the number of international references. The inclusion of more international research and systematic reviews is now seen as critical, and in fact, its exclusion has been identified as a source of bias in some reviews. The CIRRIE database is multidisciplinary, cutting across all the areas or domains of rehabilitation, not just the medical aspects of rehabilitation. Now, if one were to search across all the domains of rehabilitation, one would need to consult several different databases, each one with a particular focus. For example, medical literature, engineering, architecture, and social science. One would also need to identify within each of them those citations that are rehabilitation related. Now, CIRRIE, by extracting rehabilitation citations from these other databases and excluding the non-rehabilitation citations, has created a one-stop shopping center for rehabilitation research. The CIRRIE database uses the NARIC thesaurus with some adaptations to make it appropriate for international literature. For example, where the NARIC thesaurus uses a term such as the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, we would adapt that and use a more general term, for example, legislation. But the use of the same thesaurus makes the two databases quite compatible in their structure and search features. The CIRRIE database includes research from 1990 to the present and currently contains 147,000 citations, a number that is constantly growing. Most of the citations have abstracts in English, and some have links to the full text of the article. The database is searchable by a number of parameters, including country, subject, author, year, and the ICF codes. The ICF, the International Classification of Functioning Disability and Health, is an international classification of disability that contains terms or codes for disability in all of its types and manifestations. What is the relationship of the CIRRIE database to other databases? There are several things that should be pointed out. First, the CIRRIE database includes citations relevant to rehabilitation that are found in less specific databases, such as Medline and CINHAL. In fact, those databases are one of the major sources for citations that go into the CIRRIE database. However, we also include a number of international journals that are not indexed in those databases, and as a result, many of the citations in CIRRIE are not found in other databases. One major characteristic of the CIRRIE database is that it includes only research conducted in other countries outside the United States. Thus, it complements the Rehab data database that focuses primarily on research conducted in the United States. There's an issue of Focus published by the NCDDR that discusses in some detail the use of the CIRRIE database in systematic reviews. This issue of Focus is on the NCDDR website and might be useful to complement this webcast. Now, the second part of this presentation will be done by Dan Conley. Dan is the person who designed the current version of the database and is responsible for maintaining it. He is thus in an ideal position to explain the details of how to use it. Dan?
Thank you. This is the main search form of the CIRRIE database. We've tried to keep it as simple as possible while still allowing you to do more advanced searches easily. When it first loads, you're given a query box defaulting to a title keyword search. You can also search by subject heading, by author, or by journal. We're starting with the title keyword search here for diabetic foot. You can limit the results you get by the geographic area the research was conducted in, whether the results are in English or non-English, and by the year the article is published, but we're leaving those on the default settings for right now. Here are the search results for diabetic foot. There are 232 results. You can view the brief citations here, or follow links provided for the full record of each citation. Slide 13 is the record view for a citation. In addition to the information from the citation that was on the results page, there are links to detailed information about the authors, the journal, and the subject headings, as well as the abstract if there is one, and the link to the full text if available. Now we're on slide 14. We're going to do an advanced search. To begin with, I've limited the results to only articles from the United Kingdom and from 2008 to the present. I've also changed diabetic foot to diabetes. Here I've highlighted the drop-down menu to change which field of a record is searched. I'm going to change from a title keyword search to a subject heading search. Now that the field has been changed to subject, let's add another search term by going to the Add Another Term link. Now we're searching for the subject heading diabetes and the subject heading limbs. They're combined with the Boolean AND, but you could also combine them with OR. Using the more advanced search has narrowed the results down to 20, which should be much more relevant for our purposes. Slide 19 is a CIRRIE thesaurus. The thesaurus index has information on what it is and how to use it, and also allows you to browse or search the entries. Let's look at the entries under D. The D entry shows all the subject headings that begin with that letter. It shows the scope note and related terms, and each term is linked to an individual page with more information about the subject. This is the top of the thesaurus entry for dementia. It shows mostly the same information as the main listing, but in an easier to read and more explained format. Depending on the subject heading, it will also include the broader terms, narrower terms, related items, and which non-authorized subject headings to use it for. The bottom of the entry has more information, the 5 authors and journals with the highest number of articles in the CIRRIE database. There's another way to access the most prolific authors on subjects that we'll get into a little later. Back at the top of the subject heading entry, we can also do a search of the database by subject heading. You can follow the link at the top of every subject heading page to do the search. There are over 5,000 results for a subject search for dementia. It's very broad, but if you're looking for a general search of a subject, this is an easy way to do it. At slide 27, we're back at the thesaurus index. We can also search for subject headings that are found in the thesaurus. You can follow the thesaurus link to bring up the form. Let's do a search for employment. Here are the results. Subjects will be returned if they have the search term in their name or in the scope note. Client satisfaction here is returned because it includes the fulfillment of employment. There's also competitive employment, counselor employment, and other terms. Slide 31 is the guide to searching. It explains how to search the database and use its other features. If you're using the database and need help remembering how to do something after this webcast, you can consult the guide. Slide 32 has the newest feature of the CIRRIE database, the ability to save and download citations. As long as you're using a modern browser and have JavaScript enabled, there will be checkboxes next to each article on a database search. If you don't see them, you should either enable JavaScript or upgrade to a more recent version of Google Chrome, Firefox, or Internet Explorer. When you check an article, it will be saved for download. When you have citations saved, there will be an extra link at the bottom of the database sidebar allowing you to view and download the citations. If you don't see it, refresh the page that you're on. This page lets you view the citations you saved and download them to your computer. You can change the format they're downloaded in. It defaults to EndNote format with the CIRRIE EndNote filter provided along with instructions on how to use it. Currently, the only options to download are EndNote and plain text, but if there's a format you'd like added, please contact me and I'll do my best to implement it. The citations you mark for saving will not go away unless you delete them. You don't need to worry about a session timing out. They are specific to the browser you use on one computer, however, so citations saved on a laptop will not be saved on a desktop and vice versa. You don't need to sign up for an account with the CIRRIE either. All users have full access to downloading citations. If you would like to remove some articles from your saved list, they are displayed underneath the download form, and you can uncheck them. If you would like to start over after downloading citations, you can use the link at the top to delete all the ones that you've currently saved. Now we're on slide 37, and are going to look at our annotated bibliographies. The top-cited articles are a series of bibliographies that list the 25 international articles that have been most cited by other articles, as calculated by the Web of Science database. This is the top of the bibliography for assistive technology. It gives the name, the date it was searched in Web of Science, and the listing of citations, with annotations of the article provided underneath. We're always looking to add new bibliographies, so if there's a subject you'd like to see, please let us know. Now we're on slide 40. It's possible to search the CIRRIE database through our CIRRIE ICF crosswalk. Following the link below the database form will let you access the crosswalk. The CIRRIE ICF crosswalk matches two-level ICF codes with subject headings from the CIRRIE database. You can search for an ICF code if you know what you're looking for, or you can browse the ICF classifications. An ICF code will list all CIRRIE subject headings that have been mapped to it. You can combine them with the Boolean AND or, and optionally add a condition or special population with an AND. I've combined psychosocial factors with depression, adding in the condition alcoholism. This search gives 4 results. ANDing together so many subjects can provide few or no results, but it can also give a focused set of citations. Now we're on slide 47. CIRRIE also has a sub-database of universal design articles. It's identical in structure to the main CIRRIE database, but includes some citations that would be otherwise out of scope. Much of the research being done on universal design is published outside of journal articles, so this sub-database includes other types of citations and also includes research conducted inside the United States. You can search the Universal Design database the same way you would the main CIRRIE database, but you can also browse a list of all articles. You can browse the citations by type, like book, conference report, or journal article, or by subject heading. These subject headings are unique to the Universal Design Database and don't appear in the CIRRIE thesaurus. Finally, on slide 51, we're going to look at the subject specialist. The subject specialist is presented in an abridged version on the subject heading information page we saw earlier. This provides you a more complete list of authors who have published extensively in the CIRRIE database. You can use the Subject Specialist resource to find the authors who have published the most articles on a subject heading in the database. You can use the results to identify collaborators, for instance, for research or for systematic reviews. You choose a subject heading from the drop-down menu and select whether you only want citations from the past 5 years counted and if you only want authors with contact information in the database. The results page lists the authors, how many articles in the database they've written, and links to their author page and a search of the database for their articles. This is the same search, but only including articles published in the past 5 years. This has been an overview of the CIRRIE database. Thank you, and please let us know if you have any comments or questions.
Thank you very much, Dan. I want to thank both of you very much for today's presentation, and thank you to everyone for participating in the webcast this afternoon. Before we move on, I wanted to ask you, Dr. Stone, if you have anything else that you would like to add at this time.
Yes, Joanne. I just thought I would add that we know that many people are using the CIRRIE database. We track the hits and the visitors, and there's roughly 30,000 visitors to the database per month. However, we don't get much information about what their experience was like. We do conduct usability testing periodically, especially when new features are introduced. But outside of that, we don't get as much information as we would like from people who are actually using the database. And so therefore I would encourage the listeners to today's webcast, or the participants, to provide us with some feedback about what their experience was like, whether they had difficulties with any of the features, and perhaps suggestions for improving the usability even more. And basically that's just an additional point that I would add to the remarks that were already made today.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I would like to encourage everyone to fill out the brief evaluation form to help us for planning future events. It just takes a minute, and you can do it right now before we sign off. Just click on the direct link to the evaluation form that is found on that last PowerPoint slide. Everyone who registered for the webcast will also receive a follow-up email with a link to the evaluation form. In the next few days, the archived audio-video file and a written transcript of the webcast will be available and posted on the webcast page. We will send email to all who pre-registered when these items are ready for review. I want to thank our presenters for their time and valuable information about the CIRRIE project and its international research database. We will be working with CIRRIE over the next 5 years of the KTDRR project to help researchers to connect with international disability and rehabilitation researchers and to more easily find relevant research results. Finally, I want to thank the National Institute on Disability and Rehabilitation Research that provided funding for the webcast. And once again, on behalf of our presenters and the CIRRIE staff, and myself and the rest of the KTDRR staff, thank you and good afternoon.